like to call to order the September 15th, 2021 meeting of the Harwich Conservation Commission. Just as a note, we are still operating in hybrid mode. The public may attend the meeting in person or access the meeting on Channel 18 or can log into the meeting using login information that is available on the agenda. Just as a note, the town of Harwich has imposed a mask mandate for town offices, and we would request that all attending would wear a mask through the meeting. So having said all that, I think we can start with the agenda. The first item on the agenda is a request for determination of applicability from the Harwich Conservation Trust, and I actually do not, or do we have HCT?
Teresa from Blue Flax is on.
Okay, all right, so Teresa is on.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, go ahead.
Hi, this is Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design on behalf of Harwich Conservation Trust. Oops. I'm getting a little feedback here, so I apologize. Sorry, I'm calling in from my phone. So we're here tonight to present a request for determination of applicability. I don't know if Mike Locke from Harwich Conservation Trust has joined us. He had a moment, he texted me a few moments ago and has an issue at home that he's dealing with. He said he would try and get on the hearing. But basically, we're requesting permission to selectively treat Phragmites reed that's located sporadically throughout the Cold Brook Preserve. As I'm sure you're aware, there's a larger project. Mike is with us. There's a larger project that's going to be taking place at the preserve, and Harwich Conservation Trust is interested in proactively managing the Phragmites reed that's located in patches throughout, as shown on our plan, simply because there's concern that this particular species is very aggressive, will spread very rapidly, potentially during the rest of the restoration project. So they're trying to be proactive. We're finding this as an RDA. This is the time of year where the plant is most efficiently treated. In our plan, we've proposed to use two different methods of treatment because the Phragmites is located sporadically throughout the area. In areas where there are larger clusters, we are able to bundle and then selectively treat the cut bundle, cut the stems, and then selectively treat the cut stems. Where we've got sporadic issues of Phragmites reed, where we've got one stem, two stems, we're proposing to just use a very simple wipe method. So we basically have a simple sponge where we apply the herbicide to the sponge and then wipe it on to the Phragmites reed itself to help it translocate into the root system. Of course, we would be using a wetland approved a surfactant along with the active ingredient, and all application would be completed by licensed and certified herbicide applicators. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the proposed project.
Okay, thank you. Melissa, do you have comments?
Yeah, so as you all are aware, Phragmites are one of the toughest invasive plants to manage. And with the upcoming restoration project, we do want to get them out of the way prior to that restoration to kind of lower the chances of them spreading. With that, as long as a Massachusetts certified applicator is going to be doing the work, we can condition it to be Blue Flax unless otherwise approved, like we normally do with projects like this. This is probably the least impactful and best option to get rid of the Phragmites. So we would recommend a -2 determination.
Thank you. Comments from commissioners?
I have no question.
No questions? Brad?
I didn't hear if you mentioned time of year as to when the application would occur. You might have.
Yes, application will occur immediately. So this is the time of year when Phragmites reed is most effectively treated. So if we receive a negative determination, we would be treating as soon as we receive the permission to go ahead and do that. Basically what we do is it's the most effective time of year, similar to Japanese knotweed, where you're treating knotweed at the time of year when it's blooming or just after blooming. Phragmites reed, we've now got the plumes, and this is the time of year where herbicide application is most effective.
Okay, thanks. And how successful has this been for similar applications around Cape Cod that you know of?
So this is very successful treatment. As you know, and Amy just stated, Phragmites reed is a challenging species to manage, similar to Japanese knotweed. Again, we're trying to be proactive in doing an initial treatment. If we treat at this time of year, at the right time of year, we usually have very good success. We achieve about an 80% rate. This is really a low infestation of Phragmites, much lower than we have in other areas of Harwich. So this is really a great time for us to get very good control of this species. And then we may have to follow up on a sprig here or there after the project is completed. But the goal is to try and get at least 80 to 90% of control this season.
All right, thank you.
No comments.
No question, no comments.
I have no comments myself. I hear a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend the approval of the RDA with a -2 determination for the Harwich Conservation Trust for 0 Hoyt Road and 0 Bank Street, map 23, parcel C1 and C1-1, with the condition that the work be done by Blue Flax Design unless otherwise approved differently by either a conservation agent or the commission.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Good
everyone.
evening.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is a request for determination of applicability from Alfred Weaver, 23 Wequassett Road, map 5, parcel K1-42.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I'd like to take care of one thing before I start with this proposal, and I want to publicly apologize to the commission for my outburst at the last hearing. Regardless of how upset I get, I should not have yelled at you guys, and I'm sincerely sorry about that, and I hope that you'll accept my apology.
Heat of the battle, Mark.
Say again?
Heat of the battle. It happens.
We're all passionate about what we do, but I shouldn't have yelled at you guys.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
You're welcome. Okay, so this is a request for determination of applicability for a shed. It's pretty simple. The shed is 10 by 10. The required mitigation is double that. So I know if you were out in the area today, you saw the staked 8 by 25 area on the south side of the property. The shed is going on the north side of the property, well outside the 50 foot. So this is a buffer zone only project outside of, between the 50 and the 100-foot buffer zone. And there's an additional 100 square feet of planting area proposed next to the shed because the one tree was removed that goes right, that's right where the shed was supposed to go. And then there's the rhododendron bush that's still there, and that needs to be taken out to make enough room for the shed, so the branches don't rub up against it. The planting list was developed from McNamara Brothers, that's on the plan, and it will be installed by McPhee Associates. And that is it.
Okay, Melissa?
Yeah, this is a pretty simple one. As Mr. Burgess said, 200 square feet of mitigation in addition to the small area next to the shed. Amy's one comment, if possible, was to maybe bring that native area that was replanted, right, if you're looking at the shed from the house, to the right of it. Possibly kind of bringing that native area up a little bit just to meet the shed as well. But other than that, that's just a recommendation to kind of fill in that little gap that's there. Other than that, He seems to be abiding by his no fertilizer condition, and the other native plants along the edge of the marsh look to be doing fantastically. So with that, we would recommend a approval with a -2 and 3 determination.
Thank you. Stan?
Yeah, Mark, just one quick question, and it's not a big deal, but.
Yeah.
Because when we were looking at it, we figured that rhododendron was staying, so is there any possibility of even moving the shed a little bit further towards the road, or no? I don't know what the footage from the setback is from the road or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. It's a good, this is a 20 scale. It's over 20 feet from the 50, so it starts basically at 70. So that was just the location that Al chose. Al's in, Mr. Weaver's here in the audience.
Right.
Yeah, so zoning-wise, if you don't mind, it does have to be 20 feet from, or 25 feet from front setbacks. So if it's possible to move it any closer to that road, that is something Amy mentioned as well in her review.
How much more do you want? Like basically put it where the rhododendron was, or the edge of it, like just a couple of feet?
That's up to you guys, your application.
Well,
Do you guys have any?
what are you suggesting?
Well, like I said, I wasn't originally questioning because I figured the rhododendron was why the shed was placed where it was. So if it could be moved a few feet, it'd be beneficial, but it's,
Al, if you want to respond to that, you can come up here. You have to identify yourself.
I'm Alfred Weaver, 23 Weequasit Road, here in Harwichport. The rhododendron that's there, if we were to move it a couple more feet towards the street, we'd have to probably take it out.
No, they mean move the shed. They said because we're removing it, can you slide the shed over a couple of feet?
Oh, I mean, we're gonna take the rhododendron out?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't, yeah, if the committee would like that to be done, I have no problem with that, and then we can move, because I want to put more plantings there. I want to extend what we've done several years ago. I want to add more plantings there, so I have no problem with that at all.
yeah, because Mark had mentioned the big rhododendron that we're talking about is right near where the shed is gonna be. We
Yeah.
thought, it was, or at least I thought it was gonna stay. But then Mark, you were saying that that was gonna be removed, so that's when I questioned, could the shed be moved just further towards the road and then still have the plant, that's all.
It's an old rhododendron.
Yeah.
If you look where the stakes were, we would have had to prune like half of it,
Right.
which wouldn't have been good for it anyways. So rather than transplant it, he was just gonna replace it with something else, you know, in accordance with the planting list.
Working with Amy, I mean, we could move that shed 2, 3, 4 feet, and then I can put more
Where's the shed?
plantings on that side to extend what we did before. So I don't, if you want
Okay.
me to, I would do that, sure.
Okay, thank you, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Brad?
No comments?
No comment.
Alan?
No comments.
So I have one question, which is, you said McPhee was gonna be doing this work, which I didn't realize McPhee does landscaping. They're a building contractor.
There are what?
Building contractor.
It's,
Who's doing the landscaping work?
McNamara.
Oh, Mac.
McNamara was brought in by McPhee.
Yeah, fine. Okay.
Oh,
I just
yeah.
wanted to
Yeah,
clarify.
they're doing the
That's
whole,
all.
they handled the other one too, McNamara, so.
okay. My mistake.
No problem. So I don't have any other questions or comments. Do we have a motion?
Well, I'll recommend the RDA for 23 Wacosset Road, map 5, parcel K142, to approve that with a -2 and 3 determination.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So you'll get back to, you'll let Mark know as to how many more footage you want to extend.
As long as it's moved a little bit, it's all right. Yeah, we can discuss it with Mark, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so Next, we have a notice of intent for Mark and Deborah Ellis, 23 Mill Road, map 15, parcel U4-32. Proposed access steps, elevated walkway, and Vista management. I understand that the applicants have requested a continuance to October 6th. Is there a need for discussion of any sort now?
I can kind of explain a little bit. So there was going to be some Vista management included in this plan, but there wasn't necessarily a specific plan that had been proposed or discussed. It was very vague. So they have since brought in Wilkinson, and they would like the continuance so that they have more time to kind of go over the project and make sure that Wilkinson has time to fully kind of put a plan together to accompany this plan for the proposed access steps and elevated walkway. So that is right.
Okay, well, if there is no further discussion, I can move to continue the notice of intent for 23 Mill Road until October 6th.
Second it?
Second. Or, Ski
All in
and say.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So, next on the agenda is William Eben, a notice of intent for William Eben, 0 Snow Inn Road, map 15, parcel N8D, proposed pier, ramp, float, and dredging. And again, the applicants have requested a continuance to October 6th. Again, do you have any comments, Melissa?
I can just give you a brief kind of reason why. They did continue it. This is the same, pretty much the same filing, but it is new. And they did this so that they have more of the commission members able to vote. So they will represent next meeting when they come back October 6th. But they would like to do it so that as many commission members can be present as possible. And that's it.
Any discussion? So I'll move to continue the notice of intent for 0 Snow Inn Road, map 15, parcel N8B, until October 6, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right along.
Next is a notice of intent for Carrie Sullivan, 123 Riverside Drive, map 4, parcel A1-A10, proposed pool, outbuilding, patio, and landscape.
And before we get started, if I can make a quick comment.
Yes, please.
Great. All right, so this one is more of an interesting case for what has gone on. There was a little bit of miscommunication among the owner/contractor and some other entities. So what happened, or what we recommend, is that you open this hearing, and then we are going to request that you immediately continue the hearing. And reason being is that basically the building permit was applied for. The limit of work was established on that plan after a request from us. And that limit of work was right at the 200-foot riverfront area because the house itself was pretty close to that area. And unfortunately, there was a pretty extensive amount of clearing that was done in the 1 to 200-foot riverfront area beyond this limit of work that was shown on the building application permit. And without kind of going over this and rectifying the situation first, it kind of puts the proposed project at odds with what we would normally do in a situation where unpermitted clearing took place. So that's Amy's recommendation, is that you open and immediately continue the hearing until probably October 20th at least, so that this situation can first be resolved before going forward with the proposed project.
Okay, so shall we open the hearing as you said,
Mhm.
continue it and then allow the applicants a time to.
Yeah, we can discuss it a little bit, you guys can ask questions, we can make our recommendation for how we should go about kind of working toward resolving this situation, and then from there, move forward.
So, we are opening the hearing
Yes.
for 123 Riverside Drive. And I move that we continue the hearing until October 20th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay. Do you have any further comments, Melissa?
Yeah, we can kind of explain it a little bit. So, like I said, this was back on here, I have my notes. Back in May, the building permit was applied for, and on May 24th, we contacted Mike of MJ Nardone to let him know that we did need to see a limit of work on the building permit application because it was so close to the 200-foot area. And obviously, we didn't want to see any vegetation clearing within that area. And then when the application was submitted to us, Amy and I went out for an initial site visit at the beginning of September. I want to say it was the 3rd. And we noticed that the limit of work had been moved back pretty substantially, well into the 100 to 200-foot riverfront area. And the area had been cleared and possibly filled as well. Not 100% sure on that, but that is what it looks like. They did have the tornado come through and leave some of the trees down in the area. There were vehicle tracks in the area as well, but nothing super substantial. And while there may not have been a ton of trees because of the tornado, there was still shrub and ground cover in that area, so we did lose some native vegetation there. So Amy's recommendation is that they immediately reseed the area with a native grass mix to help stabilize it. For the commissioners that were out at the site, they saw it today, but there has been quite a bit of washout from that area as well, because the area was filled. And we recommend that they keep up the seaward limit of work. That's obviously up to you. If you decide that you'd like them to take it down, that's fine as well. And we do recommend that they submit a revegetation plan for the area that was cleared. You could pick a submittal date for the revegetation plan as well. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, good evening. For the record, my name is Matthew Eddy. I'm a professional engineer with Baxter and I Engineering and Surveying, representing Kerry Sullivan of 123 Riverside Drive, who's sitting next to me. And Kerry is the homeowner there, and he's also the site contractor on the site, so he'll be able to kind of talk through, what occurred. As Melissa pointed out, the limit of work was identified on the original building permit plan that was just at the 200-foot riverfront area. I do have some pictures. When we go out and do any stakeout, we take a fair amount of pictures, so I have some information that'll at least, I think, help you see the condition of the site before any of the construction started. I think, and Kerry can then kind of expound a little bit on what transpired as far as why the clearing went further than it was supposed to. And I think there's also a little bit of back history on the lot as far as clearing before Kerry had owned it, which I think would be helpful for the commission members to hear. If I could, I just have a single picture here. If I could submit this, if I should give it to you, Melissa, if I can give
You
it to
can
the
bring it up to the chair.
chair. And what I've done here, and I'm just going to try to walk through a little bit, but the first plan that you're going to see is just a very, at a reduced scale here, okay, but it's what we call a stakeout sheet. So it shows you the points that were staked along the limit of work in the 200-foot buffer, and they have point numbers on them, so it gives you a good reference as to a stake that we're seeing in the field and where they actually fall. And so it's hard to see on these stakes, but I was zooming in on the pictures, and so I have by hand labeled where I could, and I was just trying to find some pictures that I thought would be helpful, but I have labeled where I could the stake numbers, so you can see where they fall in relation, and just an example. And I know until you take a look at this, it'll be hard for you to understand what I'm kind of referring to, but you'll see on this first picture, there's a point number 20,005, And that's the actual stake that's sitting at the riverfront area, and so it'll give you a good reference as to what the vegetation looks like there. And then there's another stake in there, which was a limit of work stake, which is just outside of the limit of work. And then again, as you just kind of move around the pictures, you'll see, just again, I was trying to find some pictures that give you some relative feel of what the area looked like before the construction commenced.
And you do have in your Dropbox a few photos and a video that was submitted by the applicant about what the area looked like as well.
Okay, yeah, and I think those,
Excuse me, those are different from the photos?
Yeah,
in
those
the
are-
Submission here?
Those were submitted, these were submitted afterwards, after Amy and I had found that there was an issue.
right, and I think those came from the
Neighbor.
abutters, from Carrie's neighbors, that they actually had some pictures before Carrie even owned it, so.
But just to clarify, the pictures you're discussing that you have in your hand
Yep,
are different from both the paper submission we have and what is in Dropbox. They're yet a third set.
these are different, yeah, and these are just in relation to the enforcement action for the clearing. That's why you don't have these beforehand. This all just transpired on last Friday, I believe it was. And then, lastly, there's two additional pictures that I included that, again, I thought were helpful. These were actually from when we do the initial, what we call the existing conditions survey before any stakeout, anything. So there's no stakeout here, so it's hard for reference. But there's a picture here that I included that is actually Carrie's neighbor to the east, and the river is behind you in this picture, and if you look at our plans that we submitted, you'll see there's the stone wall along the property line, and then I just thought this picture kind of gave a little bit of a indication. You can see the daylight that you see through the trees, which is kind of similar to one of the pictures that the neighbors submitted, I believe, and then, again, just another site picture.
Are you
so.
able to open that video?
They opened the video earlier. It's just a cell phone
It's
video.
not letting
Yeah.
me, it's not letting me do it.
The video is from the neighbor's property, so it doesn't
No.
show the specific clearing.
No, but I can't even
Oh, yeah.
open it.
I'll open it, you can look at it on my computer if you want.
So, yeah, so what I'd like to do, if it's acceptable to the commission, is, to let Carrie kind of explain what transpired, the conditions. I believe one of his neighbors is here as well, and they can kind of give you a description of what it looked like even before Carrie was there, before he owned the property. And then I think after that, if we could, I would hopefully like to be able to kind of talk through, as Melissa was saying, a process as to what do we do to rectify this and try to come up with a reasonable and best solution that works kind of all around, hopefully, so. With that, I'll turn it over to Carrie, okay?
Hi, I'm Kerry Sullivan. I'm the homeowner and site and utility contractor on the project. Currently live in Harwich, building a new house for my family and I in Harwich right now. Quick back history on the property. We purchased this lot in May. It was actually subdivided with another lot that's still there and still uncleared. When we bought the lot, there was a road, on the lot closest to the water, there's a dock that's been in there for some time since I bought it. There was clearing that was done prior to me purchasing the land, because there was a roadway put in through both lots, through my lot and through the other lot that's still for sale, to the back of the property. So my two neighbors are here, Steve and Mark, who filled me in that there was clearing done prior to me purchasing the land. When we bought it, there were stumps flush cut, and there was a roadway put in to access the dock that's back there. The other homeowner, or landowner, I should say, has some trailers and lobster pots and everything else back there. So anyway, like Melissa said, she contacted our builder, Mike Nardone, prior to construction. We had to have the 200-foot setback staked because it's close to the house. Baxter and I came out, staked the 200-foot riverfront along with the sidelines of the property. I think he put about 3 to 4 stakes on that 200-foot buffer from one side of the property to the other. We went in, we cleared the trees ourselves for within the 200-foot. During the clearing, we pushed the trees over with the excavator, pull them out. My operator later informed me that we knew there was a lot of trees leaning over that you can see in these pictures from the tornado 3 or 4 years ago. Mark and Steve are here to say that they saw them over. During the clearing, my operator made the mistake of seeing trees that were already over on its side with trees that he thought he had pushed over. So during the clearing, he grabbed them, loaded them out with the truck. We didn't think anything of it. We didn't know we were over the line. Like I said, the stakes had been wiped out at that point during the tree clearing. We'd gone about everything. There were quite a few standing trees. We didn't clear any of the new standing, or any of the trees that were still standing. We cleaned up the mess that was there. And then we obviously filed for the permit for the landscape and the landscape construction. And at that point, Matt came back out, they staked the 200-foot, and at that point, we realized we had gone past it. We put silt fence in immediately per the town's request, stopped all construction on that. Like I said, we are outside of the 100 from what we've seen staked. This is on our proposed plan. We're happy to mitigate. It was obviously a mistake on our end, but like I said, with our pictures, you can see that it was cleared, so it was tough to tell the trees that were already laying over versus what we had pushed over during the clearing. But we're happy to mitigate, plant back what we can, and we do have some pictures of what was there. It was kind of an underbrush because a major clearing had happened probably 10 years ago, because a lot of the stumps were rotted with termites eating through the stumps and all that. So those trees have been gone for a while, and I just don't want to confuse the previous clearing with what the committee may think we cleared. I met some of the committee members out on site earlier today and explained it on site of what was cleared and what was uncleared, as well as the roadway to the dock on my neighbor's property that is still there may be assumed with my property. It's kind of confusing the way the lines are. And like I said, Mark and Steve are here. They've lived there for quite some time now and have the history of the land better than I do.
Yeah, Steve Willis, 127 Riverside Drive. I've been at that address for 35 years. Mr. Phillips, I believe, from Texas owned the property. Not a lot had happened over the years there, and then when the dock went in, they cleared a pretty substantial roadway from Riverside Drive to the dock. And recently, over the past, I don't know, 5, 6 years, a lot of trees have come down there. There was the gentleman who bought it from the Phillips did a lot of clearing, and we were trying to figure out where a house was going, where the second house was going, so there was a lot of clearing going on there. I guess he wanted to show the property better being down, and we actually had a huge tree from there come down, and he and Mark have a fence across there. It did like $1,000 damage to the fence. It hit my shed also. So the trees have been coming down slowly but surely. As I walk my dog around Mr. Russo's property quite a bit, and I've called him many times and said, Mark, you won't believe this, another freaking huge tree just went down, and thank God it went the other way. With all the tornado and all the nor'easters we had and everything, the property was a mess. I don't know what else to say. I don't think anything got cleared that shouldn't have been cleared.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
What year was the road cut that you described?
I'm not sure when the dock went in. When the dock went in, substantial road and he had posts with a chain across saying no trespassing or whatever. But it was a pretty substantial, right from Riverside Drive on the south end, pretty substantial all the way to the dock.
What do you think, 10 years, 15?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, at least since I've been there since 2008, that dock has been there. It had been done over, I think, more recently, and there was some level of riverbank.
Excuse me, if you want to speak, why don't you come up to the microphone and identify yourself, please?
Sure. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Mark Russo, 5 Salt River Lane. Yes, there was a dock there when I moved in 2008. And I know that they had done a river bank mitigation project with some fiber rolls. And, you know, I've recently had a riverbank restoration on my project, to which there's only an outstanding issue for a certificate of compliance with wondering if the marsh grass is going to grow. I believe you guys decided that more recently. we're waiting to see if the marsh grass is gonna grow in a specified area. But to point on Kerry's land, the land was very dilapidated, desolate, and very rarely used for anything other than just holding up trees holding up other trees that have fallen down. And during that tornado that went through, it seemed like there was a straight line that went all the way across, from Yarmouth through the Harwich on into Chatham. And that line went right through that area. And probably, I'm not joking, 20, 30 trees or more had felled in that area. One of them came across my property and almost hit my house. A different one than what Steve is talking about that knocked down the fence from a different storm. But it seems like every time there is a storm, there's, one or more trees additional have fallen down in that area. It's very unstable, or it was a very unstable area. I can also speak to the fact that what Kerry had said about there being a clearing, it was sometime in 2017 or 18, probably by the previous owner. We don't know for sure. I know that Steve and I were watching as we saw trees being taken out and the stumps being left behind, but the trees were being taken out. And so we thought maybe that's where the new house was gonna go, and, as interested and concerned abutters, we just were curious about that. But that was the time frame well before Mr. Sullivan purchased the northern lot out of the two that were for sale. Any other questions, we're here to answer, so.
Okay, well, I think if you guys have said what you're gonna say, we can start with comments from the commissioners, and we can start with you, Stan.
Okay.
Comments and questions.
I think I need to talk to the owner. The question I have is the cleared area past the 200, that we were looking at today, where you show the washout and everything. That whole area, has that been built up? Has that been filled in?
So
All that sand, because we're looking at basically that whole sand area, because I was looking at the washout. So is there a bank there, or was that filled in?
So we actually have that, where the washouts are, kind of on the back corner of the garage, is outside of the 200. That was filled in. And we have the stakes, and a few pictures showing the layout on that.
Yeah, I think from what I saw today, which was the first time that I was out at the site since the construction activity, it looks like on the southerly side, kind of where the road, the dirt road was going in, and there was that
Right.
fill area. That area, it definitely looks like it was filled, but if you look at our current staking that we did for the pool project, for the conservation viewing, the fill area is outside of the 200-foot riverfront. I think as you move northerly, there's not as really filled in. I'd have to look, I could get some grades and we could identify that, but I think as you move northerly, there's more of the fill on the southerly, and then as you move more northerly, I don't think there's much fill going on there. I could take a look at that a little bit closer.
To answer your question directly, there was fill put in the backyard. The area within the 200-foot we basically met existing grade. The area outside the 200, the grade changed more substantially there, closer to the building, and that was more of a fill area. So yes, we did put fill in there, but when you actually look at the 200-foot layout now, within the 200 to the 100 was basically put back at existing grade.
What do you mean, at existing grade? I mean, either you filled it in or you didn't.
You mean to match the grade where the house is?
Correct. No, correct. We stripped the topsoil and filled it back up to the top of the topsoil.
No, but I'm talking between the 200 and the 100. Was there any fill put in there?
We took out about a foot of loam and put in a foot of fill. So we didn't go higher than what was existing.
Okay, so first we stripped off the lot and any so even if the trees were gone, the growth,
There was like a
there
topsoil
was
on,
vegetation there. So that
Yes.
was taken out.
Yes.
And then topsoil was removed and some other kind of
common
sand
fill,
is put
sandy
in.
fill, yes.
So we did,
Yeah, no,
That's
and I think Kerry, he understands that, they over-cleared, the removal of the understory and some of the vegetation, whether it was, canopy or understory, yes, it went too far. I mean, quickly from
Okay.
We acknowledge,
shots
I
that we,
acknowledge I lost track of the 200 foot to the 100 when those stakes were lost. So we just assumed we were clearing it, we stripped out the loam.
Right.
It wasn't until after the stakes went back in, we realized. we
Yeah,
were
and I
outside.
guess when we were looking at the washout today, I guess I was looking at the black barrier there, thinking that was your 200.
No, the new black barrier that was put in, that's actually
Oh,
with inside
one
the
clo-
200.
The one closest to the house.
Correct, that's with inside the 200. The 200 actually kind of follows the curve of the river. So the black barrier kind of follows the curve of the house, if you saw it.
Okay.
Kind of wraps around.
So I kind of lost focus of where the stakes were.
Yeah,
And
stay
and
on
if
the-
you
Looking at
look
the
at the stakes,
washout.
it kind of wraps the other way.
right,
Okay.
exactly, yeah, that outer silt fence,
That's the silt fence, the limit
Right.
of work that is staked on the plan versus the river.
Okay.
and that outer silt fence that's out there on the northern end, it follows right along the riverfront, but then as you come to the south side of the lot where that gravel road is, it comes well outside of the 200-foot
Okay.
riverfront.
All right,
So,
that's
yeah.
all I got.
So just to backtrack, so this work was done without a permit?
Yes, all of this clearing took place without a permit. The building permit is required to stay on site, as is the plan, which did have the limit of work, which was supposed to be on site at all times, per the building permit. So there should have been reference to that when the stakes came down. And this was all completed without a permit, and despite there maybe not being as many trees, there was full clearing of vegetation, so.
Okay, thank you.
No additional questions.
Alan.
No comments.
Okay, so, I guess, following up a little on what Stan had to say, I saw very clearly, for one thing, that between the limit of work near the house and the further limit of work, which got reinstalled, there was very clearly fill there, and there was washout that happened where there was a ledge from the sandy fill that had been partly washed out, and I would say at that point, there was at least a foot of fill there above the existing grade, which was revealed just behind that, between that ledge in the fill and the further limit of work. So it seems pretty clear to me that there was fill. Aside from the other things that are discussed here and you're discussing of whether or not trees were cut that should or should not have been cut, whether or not there was previous clearing or not, whether or not there was underbrush that was existing there, you strip topsoil, which I think is above and beyond a problem that's above and beyond just cutting stuff that you shouldn't have cut. You strip topsoil. I don't recall seeing any set-aside topsoil on the lot. Did you strip the topsoil and remove it?
We did.
So adding fill, stripping topsoil, basically setting up the grade for the hardscape that you're originally proposed, that all appears to have happened. And I think all of those things, my opinion is that you should have known well ahead of time that A, this was happening, and B, none of these things were permissible without a permit. And it's a little unbelievable to me that you had no idea about that, but if you didn't, you didn't. Nonetheless, it has to be completely clear. And I think we have to discuss how we can proceed with this. Amy is suggesting a single $300 fine. We haven't discussed that yet. I'd like to hear what people have to say about that. And with the addition of stripping topsoil, I don't know if that's an additional violation that we might also specify for. I'd like to hear what other people think about that.
Yeah, so Amy had assessed the $300 fine purely for the clearing, because we were not sure at that time whether or not any clearing or filling had taken place. Technically, you can choose to fine up to $300 per activity. So if you want to issue fines, that is within, definitely not out of the question. And then, obviously, revegetation is also likely something that you guys would want to discuss.
Any thoughts?
Well, the fine issue, I think we're limited to the activities.
Right.
And so, to me, what you just described would be 3 activities. And so that's, would be my preference, is to have 3 individual fines for those activities. And then a clear plan to, stabilize the area. And, this is all independent of the notice of intent, so it's a little bit, tricky to keep that in mind.
Well, what Amy is suggesting, or Melissa, or both of you, is that immediately to revegetate that whole area with the Cape Cod mix. I'm a little uncertain about the fact that, A, it's all sand, and throwing Cape Cod mix down on the sand, I'm not sure what that gets exactly. And I don't know whether enough grass will grow there to stabilize the sandy soil that is already beginning to get washed out. I'm not sure about that. I mean, go ahead. Jim.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, please.
I mean, just my thoughts on this is that the most important thing is the revegetation of that area that was cleared. And I think you raised some very good points about, what is going to be possible there, seeing the existing conditions. The way I think we should proceed is to sort of request a revegetation plan for that area that was cleared and hold off on any further discussion of fines until we see what is going to be proposed for revegetation and whether or not we think it's going to be acceptable.
If I could follow up, it's a little bit difficult to picture that just because the proposal that's gonna come before us is going to have development in that area. So, I don't really wanna put the fines aside myself, but I think that's, and I'm not sure if revegetating the area is as important if it's going to be likely developed shortly. So, I don't mind finding a way to revegetate it, but I do not wish to put the fines aside. Do we have a period, Melissa, at which we have to issue fines, or?
No, so the enforcement order has already been issued. You guys would just have to vote to issue the fine. If you wanted to wait until the October 20th meeting when this is discussed again, you could. Or you could put it on as an item on next meeting's agenda if you wanted to.
Okay, we wouldn't lose the opportunity.
No, you can still issue. The work did take place and it was without a permit.
So,
Mr. Chairman, could I ask either the engineer or the landowner one question? How long do you think it would take you to put together a revegetation plan for that area?
I mean, we could definitely, what do you need a week before the hearing
Yeah.
or so?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we could definitely have that done before, so a week before October 20th. We could absolutely get that taken care of. One thing I'd like to, and I understand the conundrum here of, clearing that went too far versus a proposed notice of intent in front of you for the pool. And so coming up with a balance, understanding that, these certain activities should not have happened, but trying to come up with a reasonable balance as to a revegetation plan that we will prepare in balance with hopefully some type of the notice of intent for the pool moving forward, knowing that, we're still, as far as the environmental aspect at the end of the day, with the mitigation that will occur, revegetation, et cetera, you're gonna end up with, it's a 150-foot buffer from the river. So could there be, I just wanted to, see what the thoughts of the commission was as far as on this revegetation plan, understanding these circumstances, not just, doing a revegetation plan out to the 200-foot buffer, knowing that we then have the NOI that's, gonna be before you. Is there any thoughts, and I understand the conundrum with that, I absolutely do. I mean, as far as, you don't wanna encourage, an activity that should not have occurred, but again, I'm just trying to come up with a balance of.
so you need to keep in mind that there is mitigation required if there is anything approved within the 200-foot riverfront area.
Yep.
2-to-1 mitigation is required, and there doesn't appear to be any way to do, anything you do to fix up what has been done in the 200-foot riverfront area will not count as mitigation. So there's going to be an
Yeah.
issue, once we get down to discussing this, how are you gonna mitigate for all this hardscaping you're proposing to do?
Yeah, no, and understood that the revegetation plan has nothing to do with any mitigation for a new NOI, 100%.
No, I don't-
But
well,
so, but no, I
I'm not
understand.
sure
So,
that completely covers the issue. Even if we didn't have this, if you hadn't done anything within the 200-foot riverfront area, and you were proposing to do this work
yeah,
that is in the NOI, there would be an issue of how do you mitigate that, aside from any of this.
yeah, no, understood. And so to that, and I discussed that with Amy, and I think, putting the clearing that shouldn't have occurred aside, as you just said, looking at just the pool filing, again, we're over, 150 feet out, we're within the Riverfront Act as far as less than 5,000 square feet of disturbed area, understanding that there's the local bylaw as far as the mitigation that you're referring to for the 2-to-1. So I was talking about that with Amy, and again, back to us saying, okay, if this is a fully vegetated 200-foot riverfront area, I said, I think, and again, I know this is part of the filing and discussion and so forth, but, that there is a reasonableness to developing a portion of that riverfront area with the lot and looking at the surrounding area and the houses existing in the neighborhood and so forth. And so how would you then mitigate those areas? And it's, either through invasive species management, as far as if there are any invasive species within the buffer area, or then a fee in lieu of, because if you have a 200-foot riverfront area that's fully vegetated, I believe, and I'm obviously subject to discussion, but I believe that an applicant and a homeowner should have some right to be able to propose some type of activity within that, following the guidelines and so forth of both the act and the local bylaw, and then so coming up with what is that mitigation strategy for that work, staying, meeting the performance standards and coming up with that strategy. And again, I think just pick a site, we're not talking about what's, here, we're not talking about an enforcement order, you have a fully vegetated buffer, you're gonna do some work, okay, and if it's all vegetated and we're gonna be putting hardscape in that, what is that strategy for that, for the mitigation to satisfy the commission? And that's what I'm looking for, understanding that there's some, dialogue that has to happen on that piece. So I wanted to try to get a little bit of direction from the commission as to, again, the revegetation plan for the enforcement order aspect. Are we going to be doing a revegetation plan that is revegetating all the way out to the 200-foot riverfront area? I mean, again, we could do the plan, but then hopefully through the dialogue and the NOI, where do we end up landing? And I know that there's not going to be a black and white answer right now, which is going to be a little bit of a process, I think, but I just
have a few things. First off, if this were any other violation, taking the pool and everything out of consideration, we would require a restoration plan of the area.
Yep.
Clearing of vegetation and grading and filling is a pretty substantial violation. And it's Amy and I's recommendation that you do consider this separate from the application that's before you. And reason being is that any restoration, as Mr. Ketchum said, does not count as mitigation. And this riverfront area could have been taken into consideration when the house was built, if it had been included in the original permitting. There is a substantial area between where the house is and the roadway. The house easily could have been moved a few feet the other way to limit the amount of impact that was within that buffer zone, within the riverfront area. And unfortunately, without them taking this into consideration, and by clearing it prior to coming to us with a plan, in a perfect world, if it had not been cleared, there could have been added shrubs, there could have been added vegetation to improve the habitat that was currently there, and that would have counted as mitigation. However, now that the clearing has taken place, there isn't as much leeway in terms of your decision based on restoration versus mitigation. So unfortunately, again, we are recommending that they are considered separately.
I just, a little different concern. I mean, we're talking about revegetation plans and all this. It's mid-September right now. We're talking about a plan submitting a month from now. The growing season's gonna be over. I don't know how we're gonna protect that area, period, regardless of what we do.
That's why
From
Amy
further
recommended a native seed mix
But,
immediately. I know it might not take, but
but going back to John's
Yeah.
point, that, to me, that's all sand. I don't know how anything's gonna grow
Can I
there.
make a comment? I'm a site and utility contractor. That's my background. We do mass highway work. We deal with slopes, we deal with bankings all the time. I completely agree with you with the planting season. Can I recommend, obviously, this isn't gonna be heard at least until October 20th, which is outside of the planting season. The next week is ideal. If you guys let me go in the area, I'd recommend, I agree, putting a seed mix down on the material that's there is not gonna do anything. It's a sandy clay. I'd recommend we come in, put down 4 inches of loam, seed it with whatever seed the committee recommends, and jute net it. That's what we would normally do to stabilize the banking on the side of a highway, on the side of a retention pond, anything. It's stuff we do every day. We're familiar with it, and that would give you guys time to decide what we're gonna do moving forward. And we get the ideal season right now. Within 2 weeks, we would have stabilization, no more washouts, and at least it would give us time to figure out what direction we're going in. And I'm willing to go ahead and do that on, right now. Granted, even we put the silt fence in that you guys requested, the 200-foot, I told my guys when they were out there, don't touch the washouts, don't do anything right now, because we were asked not to go in there. So we didn't want to make any issues worse. We could go in there, we could dig the silt fence in at the line that we cleared to, just so nothing else washes out, like I said. Slope the banking back about a 3 to 1, stabilize it with 4 inches of loam, put down whatever mix the committee wants to use in that area, and jute net it and stake it in. And I think we'll have stabilization, no more washouts while we decide what the final outcome's gonna be. That's my suggestion.
Well, just speaking for myself, that sounds reasonable to me. I don't know what else can be done. I am concerned that this may take a while to straighten out, and we don't want to just leave it as is, so I don't see a better solution than that unless anybody.
I agree with you. It seems like a reasonable sort of first step, but we're not waiving our rights with regard to any other issues and further discussion of the basic problem.
I understand this may be ripped out. This is a temporary.
Yeah, it's just a temporary fix in order to stabilize it, you know, as quickly as possible.
And I would suggest doing the slopes, unless you want me to do the whole flat area, but I think that, really the slopes are what you're trying to stabilize. The area that's flat, between the 100 and the 200, if you want me to do it, I'm happy to.
What do you mean by the slopes?
That's what they're asking.
It's not clear to me.
Where the washouts were. Do you want to do the whole area?
Yeah, because,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
because all that fill, the sandy, clayey fill, whatever it is, if you only do the slope, the other stuff, it's gonna start washing out and washing
Sure.
whatever you do.
So we'll come in and do that whole area.
I think it's a good proposal. Melissa's a good idea to ask that you or Amy is on site to consult with him next week.
yeah, we would love to do an on-site consultation just before you guys get started, just to make sure we're all on the same page. And we can do that as an enforcement order, to say this needs to be done by a certain date. So if you guys want to pick a date that this should be completed by, that would be.
I mean, I could meet you out as soon as tomorrow, and
Tomorrow, I don't think we'll have time, but
I
early
just-
next
I agree-
week,
I agree
definitely.
with Stan,
Yeah.
said you want to do it as soon as possible
Exactly,
here.
yes, yeah. Early next week, we could definitely meet.
And
May I make a suggestion on the date? Our next meeting is October 6th, so that would be done prior to that meeting on October 6th.
Absolutely.
Basically, as soon as possible, but prior to that meeting.
Sure.
No, and I think that, you know, that's your area of expertise, doing it that way, and it coincides with what Amy's recommending, and that's what I was questioning and you were questioning, how can you do that with sand? But as you indicated, that would be the approach, and Amy suggested getting it seeded as quickly as possible.
And
So I think it's a good.
I know I said the jute netting, I was envisioning the jute netting only on the where the grade changes. On the flat area, I would just seed it, loam and seed, and only do the jute netting on the slope.
Okay.
It's just gonna smother the seed on the flat area.
I think the way we would deal with that is just request that that's up to your working with Amy and or Melissa to decide exactly what's appropriate. I think we need to cover that. Do we need a motion here?
For an enforcement order, you should, since we've discussed it. We'll basically issue an enforcement order saying that the work needs to be done by October 6th, and that you should work with Amy and I to kind of make sure that that's in compliance with what has been discussed.
Well, I'll make a motion to issue an enforcement order requiring the reseeding of that area with the described slope, with a site consultation with the conservation agent or the assistant. And I'd like to include in that enforcement order fines of $300 for the clearing, the grading, as well as the removal of loam.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
I just want to say early on, I abstained the original motion to continue this, and part of my reason for that was to hopefully get to a solution, because I know that the error has already been conducted and the violation, and to leave that fallow and, or just leave it alone between now and the next continuation. So I'm glad we had this discussion, and the applicant was able to come up with a great solution in the interim, so I think it's good.
I just want to say, we acknowledge we cleared past the line. We made a mistake when we cleared the trees and the stakes were wiped out. I know that's all besides the fact if they were laying down or not.
Yep.
During all that, my operators, I wasn't even there, had stripped the loam the way we would normally clear a lot. And we're trying to work with you as I made the recommendation to put this back together. I just hope that we can be reasonable as I'm trying to be moving forward. When we do come up with a planting plan, I'm hoping that at some point.
Actually, I'm sorry to interrupt you. There's a motion on the floor.
Oh.
This is not the right point for further discussion from the applicant, so if there's no other discussion.
That's all I had to say.
From the committee, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Can I just continue?
Yes.
Sorry. I'm just saying, as we do this temporary fix and we come up with a solution with a planting plan, I'm hopeful that down the road we can come up with some kind of in-between here with our proposed hardscape plan where we don't mitigate the whole area just to rip it back out. I mean, I'm not for wasting money, just like you guys aren't. We're happy to do what we have to do to stabilize it and make sure nothing's gonna wash out. I just hope we can meet somewhere in the middle here.
Quick question on future thoughts on that. I know we shouldn't discuss it too much, but do you have any any frontage on the river?
I do not.
Okay, so that minimizes mitigation concepts.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just, gentlemen, before you guys leave, if you can sign in on that sheet there, just so I have your names, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Pass this all the way back down to Melissa.
Okay.
Let's go on, Melissa.
Goes to Melissa.
Oh, thank you. Yes, my notes.
Yeah, you can have these photographs too, Melissa.
Oh, yes, I'll
Be
put them with the
submitted,
file.
yeah.
Thank you.
So, next on the agenda are two orders of condition. The first one is for 5 Trinity Cove. The second one is for 11 Prince Charles Drive. Do we have any discussion on either one of these? Shall we give it a few minutes?
I mean, we have plenty of time.
Okay. If there's no discussion, I'll make a motion.
I would say, I did not get a chance to
Yeah.
look at it, and I apologize for that, but give me just a minute.
Okay.
anything, John?
I did not find anything.
Okay. After Carolyn, you're kind of one of our best editors.
It's a little scary.
I have no comments on the first one. I'm good with both.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, are we ready for a motion then?
I believe we are.
Okay, if we're ready, I would like to make a motion that we approve the order of conditions for 5 Trinity Cove, map 1, parcel E3-9.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Okay, I'd also like to make a motion to approve the order of conditions for 11 Prince Charles Drive, map 110, parcel S26.
Second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay, so next on the agenda is a request for certificate of compliance for Sterling property at 2267 Route 28, Head Bay Road, map 119, parcel N6.
Small comments on this one. So the as-built does match the approved plan from what we can tell. So the house itself does look great. And unfortunately, some of the plantings on the property, most of them have been doing fantastically. The only ones that have been having trouble are on the bank. It's a very, very steep bank, if a few of you have been out to the site. So unfortunately, there was supposed to be some beach plum and some bayberry on the bank that does not look like it is doing well or has survived. So we have been in touch with the applicant, and what Amy has recommended to them, and they seem to be in favor of this as well. Crawford Land Management is now managing their landscaping and would like an ongoing condition on the project for ongoing maintenance of the plantings that they've put in anyway. So we could add in as a condition on that, that the beach plum would instead be planted, instead of being on the slope, to the left of the top of the stairs, which is kind of it's a lawn area currently, so it would be with an existing lawn, but it wouldn't necessarily block their view. They're not going to be wanting to prune it constantly. And then would also recommend planting a row of low native ground cover along the top of the slope, where there is currently grass, kind of in lieu of the plantings that were along the bank. So we would recommend approval with the condition that Crawford be allowed to continuously maintain the plantings that they've put in, and that they would also put in the plantings as discussed with Amy.
Okay. Comments, questions? Dan?
No question. No, thanks.
No.
So I have one question, which is, the comments in the site summary saying that the temporary irrigation should be removed, but how about these new plantings?
Exactly. So the temporary irrigation was supposed to be in for 2 growing seasons. It got a little mucky because there was an extension specifically for the vegetation, so we allowed them to keep them in longer. Most of the plantings are now on their third season with Crawford monitoring them, and as I said, they are doing well. But we would probably, probably should request that the irrigation along the driveway area be taken out since those plantings are established. But they may want to keep in the temporary irrigation along the top of the bank just to make sure that whatever plantings are put in can establish.
Okay.
And I can include that as an ongoing condition on the cert.
Okay, do we have a motion? Shall I make a motion? I'll move that we approve the request for a certificate of compliance for 2267 Route 28, Head of Bay Road, map 119, parcel N6, with the provision that temporary irrigation be removed except for irrigation for the top of the bank for the new plantings.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So, there are 3 sets of minutes listed here. There was
Only
one-
2, unfortunately. I'm
What?
sorry.
I only have July 7th in my mind.
Yes, it's just July 7th. The other 2, I'm about this close to finishing, but with Amy out last week, unfortunately, I did not have time. So it's just the July 7th for tonight.
Okay, do we need a few minutes to consider those? I don't have any.
No, I didn't come up with anything.
Anybody? Okay. I'll move to approve the minutes for July 7th, 2021.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any other business which may come before the commission? Hearing none.
Holy moly.
Any announcements, Melissa?
Not really. We did hear back from Wilkinson about treating some Phragmites at Bell's Neck today. So Amy actually was able to go out. She met with them this afternoon. So we should have some more information for you guys about that at the next meeting. Our new AmeriCorps members have started. We did a tool training with them yesterday at Thompson's Field. We got quite a bit done, and there are more tool trainings today and tomorrow. So there should be quite a bit that gets done at Thompson's Field, which is great. And I believe that that's about it.
And that's next Friday, we're gonna,
Yes, next Friday. Yeah, the 24th.
did we set a time?
We did not yet.
Okay.
I'll
What
make a
time,
note to
sorry?
email everyone with what time we'll be starting.
And there's nothing new, I think, on the decision to not hear our bylaw changes, not to advance them, so there isn't much to say about that. It's just disappointing.
Yeah, unfortunately, nothing new has come up, so those have been, unfortunately, kind of put aside.
Yep. Well, I want to thank our new chair for assisting, and thank you, Melissa, for helping out.
Of
Here we
course.
go,
Not here,
thanks.
so it is probably the earliest meeting I've attended, you know, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
With those
Well,
2
it was a nice-
continuances, it was,
Yeah.
nice
It worked
late
out.
load. It wasn't even, well, I guess it could have gone on, couldn't it?
mhm.
Okay,
All
anybody
right.
care to make a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in
Alright.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And before everybody runs out, I just need y'all's signatures on a few things so that we can get these decisions out. So if you guys want to start passing down, I have to go grab